Good afternoon, this is Kuro. Got a video that obviously been highly requested, an analysis on the 12th season of Ranked Battles. So we're going to start out going over basically what I feel the meta is. Going to talk at length about the CV's impact over the course of the game, changes to the CV, the maps, and then finally the ships. Uh, Basically, rank 18 to 1. I think they changed the leagues a little bit. The mode is 7v7. Uh, the map pool, looking at 6 different maps with one new one being Greece. Uh, that'll be an interesting map to see how it plays out. And getting here to some of the meat and potatoes. 8.4 CVs are going to have some modifications made to it, particularly affecting HE dive bombers. And basically they're changing the drop reticle so it's narrower and longer. Uh, and they're also changing basically what you could call the sigma for the bombs. So rather than dropping in a more clustered pattern, that the bombs are now more evenly dispersed uh, across the reticle. At least if I understand that correctly. I'd have a hard time thinking that they're changing it just so the bombs will drop along the edge of the drop reticle. Um, their intent is active maneuvering. Um, will make it harder for destroyers and other small cruisers to be hit with these types of aircraft. Um, I'm not sure about that, and the reason why I'm not too sure about it is something I'll get to in the next phase. Uh, Basically, the aiming time. It sounds to me like when I'm reading this, I haven't obviously been able to test it. It sounds to me like the aiming prep time is shorter. Um, and So the aiming is quicker, and this one is key here. While maneuvering during the drop, it's going to have less of an impact on the aiming reticle than it did prior. Now this is critical from my standpoint because if you look at my cursor here, you have the dive bomber coming in. Say he's following the arrow here, and he's coming up on my stern, and this is probably one of the worst drop patterns that you could get, just because it gives the CV so much time to line you up. Oh hell, come on, let's go back. All right, so um, as you're sailing, the CV, it just like if you're shooting a ship, you need to lead the target. So if I feint a turn in this direction, the CV actually needs to be in front of me in order to drop the bombs. So if you feint one direction, the CV's got to get in front of you. Now if you come back, you're forcing that CV to move a farther distance than what it is that you're actually moving. And the effect that had is they wouldn't be able to get a fully accurate drop on you. And with the more accurate drop pattern, they had a tendency to miss you. I think what the end result is going to be, just my hunch, that the most important thing is to make sure that you are perpendicular um, to their actual drop. Um, I think that feinting one way and then coming back another way and forcing them to move um, to blow their aiming reticle out to a larger size isn't going to be as effective as it was before. Um, so I'm this is something that I've got to test and figure out how it's going to work out. I mean, the higher bomb drop means that likely they don't have as much time to lead you and take aim and drop right on top of your ship. Um, so that's a plus. But this entire thing, I think could be summed up with this: people that don't understand the mechanics on how to dodge dive bomber drops, it's gotten a lot easier because they've just spread the pattern out, so you don't have nearly as much chance that you're going to take, 3, 4, or more bomb hits in a single drop. Uh, but I think that at the cost of that, they also lowered the skill ceiling, so you're not as able to avoid damage entirely. And I think that it basically is going to boil down to CVs are going to be a constant source of attrition on destroyers. And if a CV is playing the strategy where I'm just going to focus destroyers down, the counterplay to that is just delaying the shit out of the CV. It's not fun, but it is, well, I find it fun because I find it challenging, but it's probably not going to be enjoyable for the average player because you're not likely to be doing a lot of damage. Um, but basically, the intent being, forcing that CV to constantly miss you, constantly, try to bring his planes back around to hit you because they weren't able to get a drop off on the initial pass. So he's got to try to spot you, come back around, and if you're positioned correctly the entire time, your teammate's AA is punishing the CV. Uh, Now, before somebody starts opening their trap about flak being useless, uh, flak is only useless if they can dodge. The issue is that if a CV comes in to attack you initially, and you stay dark, you're traveling towards the planes. They're not able to get off that initial drop as soon as they spot you. So the CV's forced into a situation. Do I, you know, turn around and try to reattack that destroyer, or do I carry on into and hit something else? And the issue being that if you position correctly, they're already inside the flat cloud for your allied team or from your teammates. Uh, if the CV opts for the first decision and turns around to try to attack you, they're basically doing that turn right inside of your ally's flak. They've lost most of the ability to dodge that flak, and theoretically they're going to take significant damage. In my experience, it works out far more times than it doesn't. Um, and it's actually a really good way at baiting a CV into basically wasting that entire strike because if it's done correctly, he doesn't really have much left that he can hit you with, and if you do something just like, you know, oh, I'm just gonna drop this smoke and deny that line of sight, he's gotta come right back around a third time and try to attack you, or recall the planes and try to bring out a fresh squadron to try to hit you. Basically, it works out to, you know, tying up the CV's time, tying up the CV's resources, and if that strategy is that they just want to punish your DDs, excuse me, the dinosaurs are singing the song of their people. Hopefully they don't ruin this version of the video. Uh, but the intent being that these guys are, buddy, it's okay. You're alright, yeah, it's okay. Hold on 1 second. Time for a dinosaur distraction device. There we go. There we go. Alright, Daddy with the misdirection. Okay. And I got distracted. Okay. Uh, well, distracting the CV. Yes, that's the intent of countering that play style. It gives you the rest of your team, your cruisers, your battleships, and particularly your aircraft carrier to work uh, on different things. So, gonna go on ahead and skip over that because I don't want this to be an hour-long video. Um, there are a couple rental ships. Please don't bring shimmer or rental gearing. You basically need, for those ships, you need every bit of concealment possible, and you know those two ships in particular, um, it's just not going to work out. Um, looks like the rewards for this season, 5,500 steel. Um, that's a nice little bonus there. Looks like they changed around how some of the steel is distributed, where they're distributing 300 more in first league that they've pulled from the second league. Now this is also nice here. This is where I get my, you know, all of my camos and special signals and all of that I burn up during ranked or during clan battles. Um, farm your resources here and use them later in a game mode where it pays out quite well for you. Um, so just a little food for thought for guys that are looking at you know, increasing the economy of their account. Gonna go over the maps right here. This first one, no, it's not done by Picasso, and the dinosaurs didn't draw it either. Basically, this is the map Greece, and if it looks like Island Hell, that's because it is. This map is it's going to be very interesting to see how this map plays out. I've played on a test version of this map that had some subtle changes to it, and it's going to be interesting to see. Like this map doesn't tell me the elevation on islands to see if it's changed or not. Um, this map is going to be a very difficult destroyer map. And the reason for that is radar cruisers are afforded a lot of protection from regular gunfire. I've went on ahead and I've marked some of the common radar locations that you're going to see on the map. I've also marked a couple locations where you're going to see major pushes, particularly on the western side of the map. This western side usually seems to evolve around two teams slugging it out right here over this channel here, and basically the winner takes all. They're able to basically turn this corner or this corner, and as goes this, so goes this cap permanently. And that's going to be something really critical to see how it's going to play out. Now, destroyers, this isn't, you know, like north, you do a lot of scouting just north and south. A lot of the maps are that way, where you're scouting in either one direction or it's just open water. This map, your spotting angles are very odd. Most of them are diagonal. There are some really good spotting positions on this map. For example, here, where you can potentially spot, you know, different down different bearings, where you can spot, you know, radar cruisers, things like that. Um, to help your team out. Um, Speaking about how this meta is going to play, particularly if you've got CVs, I know guys are going to say Midway right out of the gate. Speaking from my experience with the with King of the Sea, maps like this, Hakuyuru, Hack's going to be the better of the two, and the reason for that is Hack is just a better target or the better tool for deleting radar cruisers that are camping these islands. Uh, it's not really even a contest between Citadel damage and the HE damage. Yes, Midway dive bombers can do an obscene amount of damage, um, but Hack is actually getting Citadels in. The cruisers aren't able to repair nearly as much of that Citadel damage as they would the fire damage and stuff like that that comes with Midway. Uh, so from my standpoint, particularly on this map, the key to it is killing the radar. You remove the radar, and that allows your destroyers the ability to get in and try to cap things safer. Are you going to be able to bait radar out and come back and recap it? Yes. Um, it's likely going to be punishing though, because the way that this is going to work, or the way it's going to have to work, is you're not going to have, ships scattered around out here. You're not going to have, your one radar ship here, and then, the next closest ship is a Zhao 10 kilometers away. It's not going to work that way. Uh, you're going to have your ranged cruisers, your Zhaos, your Henrys. They're going to be hanging out more with the battleships, because you're going to need to have that base of AA fire to try to prevent the CV from, attacking you repeatedly with a single squadron. Yes, that CV is going to get his initial attack through, but how effective he really is depends on how many times he's actually able to follow that up and strike you. So that's if the CV is able to hit isolated targets repeatedly, he's that much more efficient, and it's that much harder to maintain pace with him damage-wise for your CV. If your CV can only get one attack out of one squad, the enemy is getting 2 or 3. Obviously, that damage is going to begin to add up significantly over the course of the game. So your backline, you're going to be more grouped up. Now the issue with the radar cruisers is twofold. Battleships and carriers work hand in hand to punish radar cruisers. And if the radar cruisers hug the islands, the planes are able to fly right over the island. No AA can really hit them. And then bam, they just hammer the cruiser. If the cruiser backs off a little bit so he has some AA protection in there, there's a chance that a battleship can look across the map and get shots into him and knock a third or more of his HP off. The most effective radar ship is going to be Moskva. Simply from the standpoint, he's going to be able to bow tank into the battleship fire, and also, even though they don't have as much AA as a Des Moines, as a radar Minotaur, they're still going to be able to put enough out there to keep a CV from striking them repeatedly. Off the blinds, buddy. And speaking of which, destroyers and radar cruisers are going to work hand in hand. I'm going to talk a little bit more about, how destroyer players are going to help their CV players stay alive, because frankly, if that radar cruiser dies, you've basically lost that cap. There's going to have to be a lot of teamwork done in this to make this work correctly. And I have high hopes that this season is either going to really drive home these lessons to players, or this is going to be an ugly, ugly season if players can't get it through their skull that they need to play as a team. I do have concerns this season with Save a Star, stuff like that. That's something that actually I missed that the first time I read. I didn't see anything about Save a Star. Maybe I missed it. Defeat means a lost star. Nope, nope. Right here. You're gonna be on first on the team in XP earned, and you can keep your hard-earned star even for a lost game. So basically, Save a Star is still valid, and that's going to create issues as far as I'm concerned with CVs being able to farm damage all game, and they're likely to be one of the few ships, or one of the last ships surviving, and being a ship that is now moved away from being a scouting ship to a damage dealing ship. It's going to be interesting to see what Wargaming has done to basically keep CVs from always saving a star. So we'll see how that plays out. Again, I'm just going to keep trucking along. I got sidetracked there momentarily when I just thought of that. But I think one of the things Wargaming can do is basically reduce the base XP modifier on CVs. They've got to find some way to bring it closer in line to, for example, a destroyer that, they're going to most likely have a cap or two, and then, between 20 and 50,000 damage on average, and how do you balance that against something that is basically going to be feeding on the entire enemy team over the course of the battle? So we'll see how that plays out. Skipping to north, this should be a map that's going to be familiar with everybody. This is a very CV unfriendly map, and nobody. The reason why is because it's huge. You have all of this real estate out here, you got this real estate out here, and then your caps are in here. And the issue is, buddy, let's not do this, okay? You already ruined one video. Alright? The issue is, your team's got to stay together, and you've got all this extra room for somebody uninformed to just try to roam around out here. And with you only having 6 surface ships, you don't have a lot of slack to have somebody off wandering on their own. For starters, as soon as the CV sees that ship alone, those planes are going to be on him like white on rice. They're just done. I hope that the lower ranks burn those kinds of ideas out of people's skulls. But, time will tell. I don't have high hopes for this map. This map, I think, is going to be rather frustrating. Twofold, because they've basically turned this into a cruisers map. You have common radar locations tying down the caps. Here. No coke, buddy. You are not allowed to have coke. Do you want up? Come on, let's do the video, buddy. You want to do the video? Alright, here we go. Please don't. I don't need to have you close a window or something in the middle of the video. So basically on the 910 line, it's going to be the same issue. You're going to have bow tanking cruisers behind these islands. CVs are going to fly right over these islands and strike the hell out of them, and there's not a lot anybody can do other than if your CV sees these fights going on, they need to jump right on it. I'm gonna talk a lot about CVs because they're basically the most flexible to get around the map and reinforce positions. Yes, they are. Buddy, get out of the cabinet. You're not allowed in there. Um, so the CV is basically going to be like a floating reserve um, in these types of games. Knock it off. Sorry, they are being hyper as hell and distracting right now. You're not sleepy. No, you can't have bubbles. So expect fights here and here. Um, this is another area, or sometimes in here is another area where you can experience a lot of fights. Destroyers can potentially bait the radar out. However, if you have like 2 Des Moines or something like that, that starts to get really hard to bait those out. Buddy, I said get out of the cabinets. You're not allowed in there. And get out of my office chair too, because you're not allowed there. I know, Daddy's evil. So, again, destroyers, you're going to have to play patient. Wait for your team to deploy. Leave my clipboard alone, sir. And basically, one of the common, examples I use is enable your concealment circle on the minimap and keep, your allied AA inside or at least on the edge of your concealment circle for these destroyers. And the idea being that if the CV comes for you, when they fly over, they fly into allied AA, and it forces that issue that if they want to reattack you, they've got to basically do the turn of doom inside the flak, and they'll take a bunch of damage. I said no. I said no. You can't be in here. You don't listen to Daddy. You can't be in here. I know. I know, buddy. So that's going to be the biggest lesson on all of these maps. There's not if there's CVs in the game, it's not likely that you're going to be able to just rush off and cap something. Because again, even on this map, depending on what the service time is for CVs, when those planes launch, if you haven't capped this and they've got a chance to get here and reset, every CV player is coming here. So we'll see how that works out. But this is a map that, again, I think that I think the map selection in a lot of ways has removed some of the destroyer's influence over the battle. Simply because cruisers are going to be able to do a lot of what destroyers did in the past. It's just they have to kill their way into the cap to do it. Riposte is actually going to be a really strong map. This is going to be a really interesting map. The reason being, you do have common radar locations that you're going to see. CVs, typically the way it works out, southern team goes south, north team goes north, and then no, you can't have my Coke. In prior seasons, you always had, a destroyer or a destroyer and a cruiser break off from the enemy team, and they would look to try to reset the opposing force on their capping attempt in an effort to basically No. Yeah, no. In an effort to basically buy their team the early points advantage, where you could just sit on that points advantage and eventually force the enemy team to push into your established defensive position. Uh, hey, no. So this map having only 2 capture points, I think that it's actually going to be pretty strong because your team's going to be able to stay relatively close enough where they can operate around the CV and still be pretty effective. You know, 3 ships up here, you know, 3 ships here, two ships with good AA, and then like 1 radar cruiser here. Something like that would go a long way to controlling their cap, as well as denying a push on the backside and enabling a push on the front side. Um, you know, this is going to be, I think, one of the more fun maps to play. I think Greece is probably going to be the worst, but that's just my preliminary opinion on that. I went on ahead. This is Shards. I went on ahead and took the liberty of drawing how to actually play this map because so many teams play this damn thing wrong. And the issue is, North team, again, you go north. South team, you go south. Excuse me, I'm moving everything all over the place even though I'm not clicking on it because, hey, quality programming. This must have been done by Wargaming. No, you can't have my power cords. Get out. The issue is that as soon as a team tries to go up here to this cap, anything sitting in spawn here, and you know battleships like to sit and spawn because they don't know what the damn W key is for, they end up with broadside shots as soon as you come right through here. You know, as soon as you come right through here, they've got pretty good shots on you as well. It's just not worth the exposure trying to come up here. Look at it when you're coming this way. You got this island in your way. These islands are overlapping. Holy shit, there's nothing really to shoot at. Oh my god, we can come all the way out here, and then we can just bow tank right into the enemy. Fantastic. And it's this complete lack of map awareness that leads to good players ripping their hair out, watching random players shit all over this map. This is not a hard map to play. The pushing force pushes, the kiting force sits in here and delays the enemy push. Wow. And if possible, if the enemy misplays and starts to come up here, the kiting force moves their guns and they establish a crossfire position and they basically nuke whatever is in here. It's not hard. The main fight, as always, on this map is over B. Nobody on the south for most of the game cares about this cap at all, aside from delaying the ships coming out of it. Nobody in the north really should care about this cap aside from ships coming out of it. To try to do that, all you end up doing is spreading your team out too far, and the CV is going to abuse you. Shh. You can't come up here. The CV is basically going to take advantage of a team that spreads out to try to play all 3 caps. So I don't recommend it. What? No, you can't watch TV. I'm working on something, baby. No. This is Daddy's computer, not your tablet. And hopping over to the last one, Sea of Fortune. This is going to be another... I rank this one number 2 for my favorite. And the reason being, I don't think it has as many areas for people to squirt off to and be useless as, for example, North does. And it still offers a good bit of dynamic gameplay. For example, you can have, 2 or 3 cruisers in here and tie up this end of the map pretty well. destroyers can either scout here, they can make good capping attempts here. You got good scouting runs here, out in here. Uh, it's just a really dynamic map that should play out fairly well, even with just 6 surface ships against a CV. Again, you're going to need to split the team into cohesive elements. Excuse me. Simply because you need to mutually support each other, and one area of mutually supporting each other is if you see, for example, the CV focusing your battleship, cruiser players, move your damn cruiser between the incoming strike and that battleship. Make that carrier fly his planes over your cruiser before it can hit the target he's trying to focus down. If the CV changes his mind and hits you, that's great. You've got a repair party just as well as that battleship. And if you guys can spread out the attrition on both ships, you guys are going to survive much, much, much longer than you would as if the CV focused one plane down. Because guess what? As soon as that battleship's down, you're all alone. And then that CV's coming for you. So, again, this is a really familiar map, really familiar cap configuration. Just gonna have CVs thrown in the mix, so the same thing. Your island camping radar cruisers, they're really gonna struggle with CVs because CVs are just gonna bomb the crap out of them if they hug those islands. And this is gonna be where destroyer players are gonna have to really pull off some good teamwork, smoke up those radar cruisers. Give them the ability to not only repair but get their consumables back off cooldown, so they're not going to incur additional fire damage. They're not going to, for example, eat additional flooding damage, additional dots, additional damage from just the enemy team shooting at them. And by the same token, cruiser players, be mindful of what your smoke, fire, and concealment is. If you get smoked up and you're being focused down, for the love of God, if you shoot and you're going to be detected, don't frickin' shoot. The damage is not worth losing your ship. I don't know what that was. You'll have to try that again. So we're going to talk about ships here. I'm just going to go right through in order with different builds, stuff like that. This is the World of Warships fitting room. I'll put the link down in the description of the video. If you guys want to come down here, I highly recommend it, so you can sort through different builds and see what kind of performance you're going to be getting on the ships. This is my current Z52 build. I'm running the special Reinhardt von Jutland captain. Basically jack of all trades. The intent behind this, Z52 has a ton of consumables that makes it extremely strong, but each of those consumables have a rather long cooldown. The additional, I think it's 10%, yes, 10% cooldown on jack of all trades reduces these down to rather reasonable amounts where you can really start ratcheting up pressure on the enemy teams, particularly the enemy destroyers. And you can use that to what? What do you want? I don't know what that is. You gotta work on that one. I know. But basically, this ship, it's going to have a place in a lot of these maps. You look at, all of these maps with close-end islands, Greece in particular. You've got a lot of areas on shards. You have not so much. There's a couple areas on Riposte. And Sea of Fortune also has a couple areas as well where you can really bring the hydro to play. Uh, the map pool makes this destroyer more valuable than I would otherwise say. If the maps were more open, I would steer more away from this. If the maps were more like, for example, North. North is actually not really a friendly Z52 map. Um, because you don't have the ability to really to get in there consistently and use hydro. Uh, so build wise, you can either go torpedo or guns. I prefer reload right now. I don't like the way that the flooding mechanics have changed, and it really took a lot of the teeth out of the max torpedo build out of the Z52. What do you want? Daddy's doing a video right now. You know I'm doing a video. What do you want? Do you want up? Okay, come on, let's do the video. No drawing, no using Daddy's keyboard. Uh, Again, next to Germany is Japan. Shimakaze. This is going to be a really good destroyer when you're working around radar. In my opinion, she is the best destroyer working around radar. I've gone in depth in it before. If you've got any questions about that, take a look at the Shimakaze videos that I've posted. Um, Basically, the agility, all of the small AA on the ship tends to absorb damage that your ship would otherwise lose in HP. It's narrow, so you just are able to angle to her. Yes, that's Daddy's watch. Calm down. So you're able to avoid just a lot of damage just with natural dispersion. Going on build-wise, uh, really comes down to two different strategies, and I've used both in ranked. One being 12 kilometers with the legendary module, which actually gets your reload down pretty reasonable. The other one being F3s. Now, if I'm running F3s, uh, I'm not running the legendary module. I'm running standard torpedo tubes mod 3 because it's more likely that I'm going to be doing close-in torping, and I want to be able to maneuver and dump torpedoes at the same time. For example, if I'm trying to torp uh, enemy destroyers or something like that, I don't want to be dealing with trying to steer the ship to dump my torpedoes because that's going to open me up to eating torpedoes in return. Uh, so you can see kind of the reload just with torpedo tubes mod 3 with 12 kilometers. You're looking at 117 seconds. With F3s, it drops that down to 100.2 seconds. Now the advantage of legendary module is running them on the 12 kilometers brings you down only to 103.3 seconds. So basically, roughly 3 seconds longer reload over your F3s. The downside being, yeah, no, that's not black, that's brown. Did you want to draw? Here, draw. Yeah. Draw me a picture. So that would be how I would configure this. Don't even bother with 20 kilometers. It's a waste of time. Anything that eats 20 kilometer torps, even with torpedo acceleration, they're doing something wrong. Haragumo. Well, this isn't going to play as a destroyer at all. The intent for this ship is basically fire support. You use spotting from another source, whether it's the CV, whether it's another destroyer, radar, whatever. You set up shop and you just hammer that ship, particularly, radar cruisers and battleships. Uh, you basically want to remove the enemy's ability to zone your destroyers out of the cap, and by removing battleships, you want to remove the enemy's ability to push you or push into your team with battleships. Obviously, this ship is good at punishing destroyers, but you need to be pretty close to be able to do it effectively. Typically, beyond 8-9 kilometers, the effectiveness of the guns really tends to start dropping off against a maneuvering destroyer. The build on this ship, again, reflects the nature of what I'm trying to do. There's a lot of island cover here, so I feel you don't need the fourth smoke screen. And IFHE Demo Expert really buff the damage out of the guns as much as possible. Run and reload. You could run basic firing training. It's just, in my opinion, with a reload this fast, you're going to get more out of Demo Expert than you will out of basic firing training. You could consider dropping Concealment Expert for basic firing training and have another point for something else, or take it out of Adrenaline Rush and be able to run Superintendent. That could be another strong one. The issue with it being, obviously, that if you're the only destroyer that loads into a game, even at 6.2 kilometer concealment, you're relatively easy to detect and counter by an enemy destroyer, and it's a gamble. That last kind of non-concealment max damage build that I'm discussing, your play style is pretty much kill your way onto the caps and deal with the enemy that way, rather than trying to actually cap an objective and forcing the enemy team into a predicament. Keep on going. Yu Yang. The radar is going to be valuable. Pretty much, I don't think anything else on the ship is. The guns have just been nerfed to crap, and this destroyer is going to struggle as a result. I mean, I haven't even had a close fight against a Yu Yang in my Shimakaze since this ship got nerfed, and that's even prior to Shima being buffed. This ship is kind of in a sad state where you've got over a 2-minute torpedo reload, and Russian like Grozovoi legendary reload on your guns, but these are USN 127 millimeter guns. No, you can't have that. Where, again, beyond 7 kilometers, you're gonna start struggling against destroyers. Yes, you're drawing. Yeah, go for it. Make me a picture. Good job, baby. Obviously, one of the other issues with this destroyer, if you're running radar, you do have the chance of getting caught out by the enemy CV and punished. The flip side would be running a smoke build, where it pretty much nothing really changes. I don't like running torpedo tubes mod 3 on this destroyer, because I always seem to lose a torpedo tube on the number 2 torpedo tube. Just constantly gets destroyed, and without it, your gun reload is 4 seconds, and it's, for a ship that's not able to torpedo destroyers, it's basically unforgivable. So that's why I try to run it in this configuration. I would even consider running basic firing training or superintendent. The issue is your reload on your torpedoes starts to really get out there and it gets out of control. Frankly, this ship is busted and Wargaming needs to do something and fix it. It's just too far out of line with the with its peers as far as the performance that they get out of it. Next ship is an old standby, Gearing. Probably one of the most flexible destroyers this season. Um, this particular captain, I'm running Ovechkin for the additional HP. Uh, defensive fire, I'm not 100% sold on if defensive fire is, the way to go. It can kill some planes. Um, but Gearing is also a slow boat, and I'm not entirely convinced that running the extended duration speed boost uh, would be better. With this superintendent build, you can pretty much be going 8% faster almost all game. I mean, it really speeds up your gearing getting it around the cap or around the map, and that's got some advantages. One thing you will note, I am running a smoke generator mod 1 on it. Uh, for those that don't know, it basically adds an additional 9 seconds onto your smoke deployment time, and that really gives it an ability to lay smoke screens that just zone off entire sections of the map where the enemy can't see into. And if as long as you stay outside of your smoke and you turn back towards the enemy, you provide the spotting information, it just lets your team farm the hell out of the enemy. This sort of play style is going to be very valuable, uh, particularly for the radar cruisers. That's not food. Get it out of your mouth. Simply because your smoke is so long lasting. It's large. You can either lay curtains or direct smokes. I will say that if you're looking, no pens. Come on. That if you're looking to uh, lay a smoke curtain against the CV can easily spot ships behind your smoke screen by flying planes over it, and completely nullify your effort. So you need to be mindful about the type of smoke screen that you are going to lay, so it doesn't get mitigated by something as simple as plane spotting. Come on, leave my flashlights alone. Um, so I expect Gearing to be a very strong pick. Basically, the idea being allowing radar cruisers and other close-in support to get in really close to the caps where they can be effective, and that gets anti-air and radar and other good stuff over the cap supporting you, and gives you some options for when you scout things. Uh, if you wanted to really run this where you weren't looking to engage destroyers or anything yourself, you can swap out the legendary module and um, basically have nearly Shimakaze levels of concealment. I said no, you can't have that. That's not a toy. Torpedo wise, I know most people are probably going to gravitate towards the 16-kilometer torpedoes. Uh, in my opinion, the upgraded Fletcher torpedoes work as well. A lot of these maps, um, I just I see more utility in faster torpedo reload, but shorter range than for example, with this build, you're looking at basically a 94.6 second torpedo reload versus 121. Uh, there's some utility in these faster torpedoes, spamming them out, uh, keeping things off balance around caps, things like that. Uh, but ultimately, that's going to be up to the individual player to decide what it is they want to play. So you got some flexibility here with gearing as far as how you want to run her. Uh, Daring is going to be another really good pick with the repair. You've got a little bit more survivability. Calm down.
Happy.
Are you happy? I'm glad you're happy, baby.
Green.
Yeah, that's green. Now, one issue with Daring is you're going to be forced into a conundrum, uh, and that is IFHG. If Daring pretty much is going to want, well, it's one or the other. You can go, you can drop Adrenaline Rush and Superintendent, for example. Uh, drop Superintendent, meaning you only have 2 repair parties. You want out? Can you say out? Oh, number 2 crashed on the couch. I knew he was tired. Dinosaur down. He didn't make it to the bed. Okay. So you lose some HP on the repair party end, um, but you maintain, the larger HP pool up front with 23,400, and by dropping these 2, that lets you pick RPF, which gives you the information that you're going to need to compete against, more sneaky destroyers. The gearings, uh, particularly Shimakaze is nasty for a Daring to go against. Daring's just too slow really to catch a Shima unless the Shima misplays, and the Shima can just run it around in circles basically and zone it out of the caps. Hold on 1 second.
Mic off. Mic on.
Sorry about that. Talking too much. So if it were me, I still would not run RPF. I would still run basically max survivability build. The other way they could drop survivability expert and adrenaline rush and pick up RPF that way. But again, they pay for it right up front, 20,800 HP. The risk here is eating like a Shimakaze torpedo because that is one-shot territory. Yes, you do have the hydroacoustic search, but if it's down and it catches you, oops. So there's some kind of some give and take with how you want to fit this thing out. I do run gun build on it. This destroyer is I kind of place her a unique position, kind of between a Haragumo and um, mm, I would say I would say kind of like Haragumo. There's not really another torpedo option that torpedoes like her because of the single fire torpedoes. They are closer range torpedoes, but it's one of those things. 10-kilometer torpedoes are plenty. Radar in this day and age, uh, there's very few ships that can actually stealth radar. So if you are able to um, remain outside radar range of a ship for, you know, a minute or two, you have a really strong possibility of um, basically coming back in inside of that radar range and dropping off a really accurate torpedo volley on, a destroyer that's, bow camping or something like that. Um, so aside from that, the guns are, I mean, between the guns and the way the smoke screen works, uh, you can really make a lot larger ships bleed a lot of HP just cycling through smokes and with IFHE, your penetration damage as well as decent fire chance, it's pretty solid. So the major downside to daring, in my opinion, is going to be its speed. 35 knots. You're talking, uh, potentially. Well, you're running same speed as most of the cruisers out there, and you're going to have a hard time getting into, proper position, things like that, early enough to do what you need to do for the cruisers. It's going to limit your ability to get around, for example, to scout and then drop back if you need to smoke a cruiser up or something like that. It just takes ages in a daring compared to Grozavoy or Shimakaze. Even gearing, which isn't that much faster, uh, you've got the option with the speed boost where you can still get up there and be significantly faster than daring. So uh, daring is very much an asset that you commit to one area of the map, and you're not really pulling this ship out and bringing it, to the opposite flank in any sort of, reasonable time um, when it comes to how you think about actually relocating a destroyer to the opposite flank. Um, so here's the next one. This is going to be another popular destroyer, Grozavoy. Uh, this one, there's builds all over the place you can do with it. If guys don't have the legendary module, uh, you know, main battery mod 3 is pretty solid. In some cases, it could be even better because uh, your torpedo reload is only 129 seconds with it as opposed to with the legendary. It bumps it up to 142 seconds. Uh, the difference is you can see it in the gun power, 3.3 seconds to 3.5 seconds. Uh, that's a good bit of DPM. Uh, Now you can do a lot with these Russian destroyers. This build is it's more of like a Russian build. Just kill everything around the caps, push it out, and then just come in and cap it with manual AA, with defensive fire. Oh, I didn't put the premium consumables on here. All of these obviously would be premium consumables. Uh, this ship would be, uh, it would be, uh, it would be better protected than most destroyers dealing with an enemy CV. Uh, Now, other different types of arrangements would be uh, IF Advanced Firing Training AFT, or good lord, I need coffee. Advanced Firing Training in IFHE, for the reason being that gets your HE penetration to 28 millimeters. So things like bow camping Des Moines, uh, all the radar cruisers except the 50 millimeter plating on Moskva, you would be able to just deal raw HE pen damage to them in addition to your fire chance. Uh, so this opens up a strategy of spot them from you know 10.6, 10.7 kilometers, open up on them, bait them into a gunfight, and then fall back to more safe range and just work on wearing them out. This is You know, it's a play style that relies more on weakening the enemy's position by killing ships than it does just going in there and taking the cap. Now, if you wanted to, you could also run more of a destroyer killer setup with with something like that, or main battery mod 3, and that gets you down to gearing levels of reload with only a 6 kilometer concealment. With again, I would run Ovechkin on this for the additional HP, and this begins to be a really nasty destroyer for teams to, or for enemy DDs to deal with. Now, obviously if you're picking a fight with a destroyer and he's got a cruiser backing him up, you know, it's still something that's not a good trade. Uh, but you know, play around with this Grozavoy. Figure out in your head how it is you want to approach winning battles, and you can generally find a way to do it with this ship. The last destroyer, Kaba, I don't think she's viable. Uh, yes, she's really fast. She's just too visible. Too visible. The guns don't have enough range. Everybody knows how to shoot a Kaba by now. AP, even from cruisers, punishes the hell out of this destroyer. It's just not worth it in my opinion. I mean, theoretically, you could run, you know, kind of a setup like I was talking about earlier, AFT, IFHE, and work down radar, work down cruisers that way. But with the way that this ship really lost a lot when they changed fire damage on cruisers. Uh, Simply being, you used to be able to burn cruisers down with this ship. Now it takes much longer to do it, and it's, I mean, it just gives the cruiser player too many opportunities to punish you. So this ship could work. It's just highly situational. I don't think that it's basically going to be a ship that you're basically a big distraction device for the enemy team. You're hoping to be able to draw, you know, 2 or 3 ships' attention towards your ship, and then your team being able to uh, take advantage of having less guns aimed at them. They be able to make some sort of maneuver. To note, uh, typically I would say no to a smoke build, but some of these maps are so confined with island cover that it might pay off doing a smoke build with IFHE and that sort of thing, simply because you may not have enough time to, you know, zoom through an area and work down a cruiser, you know, well enough. Whereas opposed to if you just smoked up somewhere safe and just rained on that cruiser with IFHE, you could probably do a lot more damage a lot quicker than you would be able to just with repeated drive-bys. So that rounds out all of the ships. At least all of the destroyers. Talks a lot about the play style, what I think of the maps in particular. To kind of give you my, I know some of you are gonna really want to pin me down for what ships that I feel are going to be the go-tos. I think most people, their knee-jerk reaction is going to be Gearing and Grozavoy. I think both of these can be effective. Uh, I think Shimakaze, depending on how much radar is in there, it can be effective. She can work right in front of her team and be, I mean, let's see, 2.74 kilometer concealment from the air. That's not a lot of time to hit this destroyer. CVs basically are forced into that fly around situation, and she can take advantage of that. Uh, Really, the ship that's calling to me right now to try to test out is Z52. I think that this is a sleeper ship. You guys are probably going to see me running this ship more than, other ships. I am going to be doing things with, I'll probably do a few with Daring, some with Grozavoy. Um, I don't know about Grozavoy. Grozavoy, it's a little, you know, um, it's not really my play style, how I like to play DDs. Uh, Ships you won't see me run. You most likely won't see me run Haragumo. You won't see me run Yu Yang. Uh, and you won't see me run Kaba. So if I had to rank them, I would say my yes choices would be in no particular order would be Z52, uh, Grozavoy. I'm iffy on Daring. Its speed could be an issue. Um, where the hell did Gearing go? Did I close that? Oh, there it is. Gearing. Uh, so Z52, Gearing, Grozavoy, then probably Shima, a half a step behind them. Um, and then the rest drop off rapidly from there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this video off because I know I've been talking forever and a day. If you listen to this whole thing, you've got the patience of Job with the dinosaurs going on in the background. Uh, but anyway, I hope you guys are having a good day. If you've got any questions or comments, something that I missed in the video, I'm sure there's a lot of things that I didn't cover. It's just I can't. It's not really fair for me to put out a 2-hour video and expect you guys to listen to everything. So if you got any questions or comments below, post away, go nuts. I will answer everything that I can. I hope you guys are having a good night, and I'll talk to you later.